Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, episode 236. I am your host, Michael. Joining me this week, Gail from Communities Digital News, uh, Daniel from the Inscriber. Excuse me. I am your host, Michael. Like I said, we go back, start again. I am your host, Michael. Uh, Joining me this week, Gail from Communities Digital News, Daniel from the Inscriber. What's going on, lady and gent?
Hey, got a lot of action tonight. We got to talk fast.
Yeah, and
Yep.
a lot has transpired over the last really 12 hours in particular. Some late breaking news that took place overnight regarding the light heavyweight division. Let's get things started. Not many fights to recap. Um, Going to start with kind of the big bout, if you will, took place Sunday actually. A rare Sunday bout. Uh, Jose Uzcategui, first defense of his IBF super middleweight title. Well, no, what am I doing? Let me get everything else. I'm just getting ahead of myself. For those who are new, Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report, live YouTube show, podcast, as well as blog discussing all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns boxing, we will talk about it. If you want to find out any information regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, blog page is the place to go to, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com. That's the link. You check the rather blog page. You'll find links to where to find us all over social media, Facebook, G+, YouTube, Twitter, you know the deal, as well as links to where to find us on all available platforms that carry the podcast, minus Spotify. We're not on there yet. And um, there are very few things in this world that are free, including the production of this podcast. So there is a donate button. Let donation be the best nation. So yeah, you check the blog page. There is a donate button there to Pound for Pound Boxing, the Cashmere account. Again, let's get things started. Recapping what went down this weekend. Going to start what happened Sunday. Jose Uzcategui making the first defense of his IBF super middleweight title against Caleb Plant. For full disclosure, I have not seen the fight in its entirety, so I'm going to rely exclusively on my guests here, Gail and Daniel. I've only seen through round 8, so I can't really. It would be a bit unfair to give a complete analysis. Plant ended up upsetting Uzcategui by unanimous decision. He's the new champion. I'll go to you, Gail, and you can follow up, Daniel. From what I've seen of the fight through the first 8 rounds, it seemed that Plant, who scored a knockdown in round 2 and 4, was controlling things with his jab, with his movement. From the video I've seen, I was a little bit disappointed in Uzcategui's fight strategy. It seemed a bit, for lack of a better word, lazy. No creativity in terms of his plans of attack, and Plant took advantage of that to build a comfortable lead through the 8 rounds that I saw. Now I've heard that Uzcategui hurt Plant in the 9th and 10th rounds and kind of closed pretty strong in the last quarter of the fight, but it was a bit too little too late. So from your perspective, Gail, as well as you, Daniel, your breakdown, your analysis of Plant's upset win over Uzcategui.
You haven't missed a whole lot, and what you've heard was a good analysis of the last third of the fight. Plant was so well prepared. He had a great game plan, and great game plans are fine, but you do have to execute, and he did. And he did it mainly with speed. Uzcategui, whether Plant was really that fast or Uzcategui was having a bad night, or a combination of the two, which I think is usually where the truth lies, is right in the middle. Plant was making Uzcategui look bad in the first few rounds. Now, as they tired out and started to fight a little more close quarters, the pendulum swung over to Uzcategui's side, and he did win all 3 rounds on the judges' scorecards, final rounds, last 3 rounds. But it was absolutely too little too late. And even though he did connect on Plant twice with pretty good shots, the problem is that he lacked the power that he might have had early on in the fight to do some real damage. He buckled Plant's legs briefly, but it didn't seem to me like Plant took any extreme hurt from either of those good punches. They looked great, but Plant got to the final bell, got a decision he deserved. In the boxing Twitterverse, I noticed the scorecards were all over the place. I even saw a handful of them that had it as a draw. I have no idea where they saw that. I was right in line with the judges. Scorecards were 115, twice 116. Those are good scores. They were right on target. Plant just did everything he needed to do, did it right. Do I think he's now the class at the top of the super middleweight division? No, no, not when you look across. But he's certainly in the top 5 or half dozen, and deservedly so. It was a great performance. It's the kind of thing a guy like Plant dreams of doing. He was extremely emotional at the final bell, and I love seeing that. When a guy hears those 3 magic words, "and the new," for the first time after working so hard for it. And if you know Plant's backstory, he's had a lot of personal tragedy in his life. He had an infant daughter die in 2015 as he was working his way up. He devoted this to her, which gives it all that much more meaning, and it's all the sweeter, if bittersweet, for him. It'll be interesting to see what happens from here. There's talk of a rematch, as we like to say on the Pound for Pound Report. I don't hate that. I'd love to see it. And may I also add, I love, for what is in California, happy hour Sunday afternoon fights. I love it. I wish I'd see more of those.
Really have to agree.
Sorry, I was on mute. Follow-up question, Gail, before I go to you, Daniel. You talked about the talk on boxing Twitter after the bout, and you mentioned how Uzcategui came on in the last third of the fight. Even though Plant dominated, in your estimation, the first 2/3 of the fight, or 3/4 of the fight, depending on how you want to your math. Do you think what Uzcategui did in those final few rounds, do you think it warrants a rematch, or was Plant just so dominant up to the point that he was hurt a couple of times that it was like, nah?
I wouldn't mind seeing it. First of all, I'd like to know, was it a bad night at the office for Uzcategui? Was it just one of those performances that you just wish you could take back, uncharacteristic, you just weren't feeling it, whatever the case may be? And a lot of guys have nights like that. Some of them escape, escape with a win. Uzcategui didn't. So A, I'd like to see that question answered. B, no, it wasn't a blowout by any means, because if it had been a blowout, Plant would have kept up the pace, would have won those last 3 rounds, or would have put Uzcategui on the deck for good with one of those 2 knockouts, maybe the second one. So there's the question posed there too. It was close enough and surprisingly entertaining enough. You've seen the first 2/3 of the fight. I didn't expect, frankly, to enjoy it quite as much as I did. And I'd love to see another 12 or less from those 2.
Your thoughts on that, Daniel?
That, I said, a surprisingly good fight. And Caleb Plant won that fight on the jab. I don't know why Uzcategui never really established it. Like the few times that he threw it, it was more of a, like a measuring stick or like a paw punch. It's not really a good plan to have that in. But then again, Uzcategui, looking at his record, he kind of fell in love with his punch. And that's the bad thing about punchers at times. When you fall in love with the punch and you think that you can endure a lot. But Plant came in with a right game plan, good defense, established the jab, and ultimately catch Uzcategui, who wasn't doing very, very good defensively, with those left hooks. Because I think both the times in the second and in the fourth, it was a left hook. that landed and that dropped it. Now, what do you say was the power or more balance? That's one thing, because Uzcategui didn't really look hurt, and neither one of them, but he knew he got caught. So it was very interesting to see the last third of the fight, because even though he didn't score a knockdown, you can tell as the fight went on that Uzcategui's punches were hurting Plant, and hurting it pretty well. One thing he had was it was a cut right in the eye, and within the first 30 seconds, you could tell that really bothered Plant. As you saw, Mike, it really bothered him. It allowed Uzcategui to get some really, really good punches into it. And then I think it was in around the 7th or the 8th round where you had a punch that I think it might have broken the blood vessel in Plant's nose. So it's really, really a measurements, the tale of two fights. But the problem with Uzcategui was that second fight came a little too late. I wholeheartedly agree with the scorecards. It was 8-4. It was a really, really good scorecard in that front. And I don't really, really think anybody that looked at it seriously was considering it actually a draw. I think it's one of those things where, okay, Plant looks the one more hurt. You have to give him some rounds, but no. Better defense, better conditioning a little bit up to the rounds, and overall, he wanted it more. That's all it comes down to when it comes into a lot of these fights. Caleb Plant wanted it more, and I give full credit to Uzcategui. He didn't try to make any excuses. He fully accepted the loss.
Assuming there's not a rematch here, when you look at the landscape at 168 pounds, you got Uzcategui, who just lost to Plant. You got David Benavidez, who after the fight said he would love to fight Caleb Plant. He said he'll run him out the ring. You got Zurdo Ramirez, who's technically at 100, who's technically still a super middleweight. Callum Smith. You got Darrell, who I believe is going to fight for the WBC belt, vacant belt that Uzcategui lost due to testing positive for snorting a cocoa. Who would you like to see a Caleb Plant fight? And if that's this for both you, Gail and Daniel.
Well, I don't think he's ready for Callum Smith, but I wouldn't mind seeing him fight Zurdo at all.
It's the IBF belt, so was this Uzcategui's mandatory bout?
Plant was technically number 2, so it was basically good as a mandatory as you can get. So
okay, so
because number 1 it's not technically a number 1 ranked guy. So
okay, so they had the mandatory. That's good. Okay, so he technically then took care of that front. So yeah, the division's open. Looks like I know in the news, it looks like we're having a trade between divisions. So
yeah.
There could be.
He could always fight the WBA regular super middleweight champion.
There's also that, but I stay silent.
Do we need to name him?
I stay silent for a reason.
Sorry, just had to go there.
Well, it would be a good fight. It would be a good fight to see because
it would be a draw. Yeah, it would.
But my thing is, when it comes into it, is I want to see Caleb Plant do that again, but try to do it against somebody else.
So you don't want to see a rematch?
I wouldn't mind seeing the rematch. I wouldn't mind seeing the rematch because that last start of the fight tells me that if Uzcategui establishes the jab early, there's a chance that he could flip the script on Plant.
Before we move on, I want to give a shout out to Fink, who's joining us live, listening live in the on YouTube, and he's in the YouTube chat right now. He says that he wouldn't hate a rematch, but mandatory business doesn't usually have rematch clauses. Unfortunately, Uzcategui has balance issues and tends to get knocked down. That's I can hear your point.
That's fair.
I can concede that. That's fair. Particularly, I want to say the first knockdown and the second. That seemed to be more one of those two knockdowns. I can't remember if it was the second or fourth round. It seemed to be just as much of a case as Uzcategui being off balance than just a clean punch, powerful punch. But still, a knockdown is a knockdown, and you had to call it.
You had to count it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was the fourth round one. That was the more one of balance, but it's not so much like I said. I don't want to see it again because it turned out to be a really fun, entertaining fight. The main thing is we also have to be realists in the realm that we're dealing with when it comes into it. This is a PBC fight, so ultimately you have to almost just limit it to the PBC fighters. So in that sense, you can get the Durrells, or like I said, he's no longer a champion, but doesn't mean that he can't be ranked now. Wouldn't mind seeing him against Benavidez.
Benavidez, it's one thing to elude a Uzcategui with balance issues, and to me, he fought a bit lethargic. It was the same lethargic nature that I saw in his previous bout was a non-title bout. Benavidez is a whole nother proposition. Young, strong, very, very active, knows how to really cut off the ring, better footwork than Uzcategui. I think if I was Caleb Plant's folks, his handlers, I would stay away from that young tiger. Before we move on to talk about another fight, I want to read a comment from the last show, a comment that I received after the show was over with. Carlo Gambino, he commented, we were talking about Amir Khan and Terrence Crawford. The announcement was today, I believe, so it is official. Terrence Crawford is going to fight Amir Khan April 20th. Gambino said, following the show, he said that the reason he, meaning Amir, is choosing Crawford over Brook is that Brook will beat him, and he doesn't want to lose to Brook because Brook is far more admired and respected than Amir is. Your thoughts on that? Your thoughts on that comment?
There's only one reason Khan's fighting Crawford, and it's called a paycheck, a big paycheck. That's it.
I disagree with that.
Money talks. Well,
I disagree with that.
Where else is he going to go right now?
The reason I disagree is because I did research on this, and he would have made more money fighting Brook than he would fighting Crawford. Eddie Hearn was offering him up to $10 million to fight Brook.
Well, until it's signed on the bottom line, we don't know what the offer would have been. You know, there was just so much clickbait out there regarding money, and I can't see any reason he'd take this other than getting paid and getting paid well.
And Brook and Hearn has said publicly that he wanted Khan to fight Brook rather than fight Crawford.
Yeah, here's the problem. When you have two British fighters fighting each other, you know, the interest elsewhere is limited. You have an American fighter and a British fighter. You've got a lot more distribution potential and a lot more syndication and licensing potential. And, you know, you don't make your money just from the purse if you're a smart guy. So I think the money potential, you know, looking beyond the purse was far better with this fight.
We'll agree to disagree. We'll agree to disagree on that.
And either way, you know what? They didn't ask our advice, and we're getting this no matter what we think.
I think you said this last week, Daniel, and the more you said it, and the more I thought about it, the more I agree with you. He's going to lose to Crawford. He'd rather lose to Crawford than possibly get beat by Brook.
Yeah. Nothing in the past week has made me change my mind. That pretty much says Amir Khan, I think he's accepted that he's going to be knocked out. He said, like, I will be knocked out by anybody as long as it's not you. The problem in doing this, and the problem that presents for Crawford is, it looks like Crawford is only going after supposedly easy touches because, let's face it, Amir Khan makes Cotton Candy Chin look like aluminium.
Yeah, but again, as I said last week, though, this was his second, third choice. He initially wanted Garcia, and Garcia's folks said nope.
Yeah, but notice the trajectory that they were going with. Danny Garcia, Luis Collazo, Amir Khan. Almost all of them, Khan, I think, is still somewhat like 50-50, a Heyman guy. He has to deal with Heyman guys still, and all the other people that you really want to see him fight are busy. That's the issue of it, but I want to touch into that comment that I think says that Brook is more respected in the UK. I think a lot of it probably has to do with the fact that Khan really, really jumped early in coming over to the States, trying to build his name. I think particularly, I might be wrong, was it before or after he got knocked out by Prescott that he came to the U.S.?
After.
That's a pretty lousy way to try to establish yourself in the home country, where you can just say, oh, well, in the British phrasing, in a way, you're leaving just as your career is in tatters.
Yeah, he fought Prescott. He got knocked out in the first round. Then he went and sought out Freddie Roach, stayed over there, brought Barrera to the UK, fought him, stopped him, and went up to 140, won a belt. Then after he won a title at 140, that's when he came to the US.
But wouldn't leave a bad taste in your mouth that said, okay, you lost, and now you're running away. You're still coming back here, but you ran away after you lost. That may be it. And it's also pretty much the fact that Brook, for almost all his time, has defended his title in the UK most of the time. So there's the respect factor is there, but like I said, ultimately to me, like I said last week, is Amir Khan pretty much telling the world, I will be knocked out by anybody as long as it's not Kell Brook.
Let's move on to more action that took place. This fight between Uzcategui and Plant happened Sunday. The next fight I want to talk about happened, I want to say Friday, on a ShowBox card. Devin Haney, one of the more promising prospects in the sport, fought a South African fighter by the name of Ndongeni, knocked him down in the second round and basically had his way. He was in complete control, won by unanimous decisions. I think he won every round on all the judges' scorecard. I'll go to you, Daniel. Okay, looking at this fight, to me, it just seems like a fighter, like a B plus fighter versus a B, C plus, a C fighter. Ndongeni, he was tough, he was willing, he was trying, but you can just tell he was just a level below, and no matter what he was going to do, Haney was going to stay a step ahead because he was just that more talented. So the question is, afterwards, Haney has been, even before the fight and afterwards, saying, I'm not a prospect now. I'm a contender. I'm a contender. I'm a contender. And he wants to fight for a world title this year. Is he ready to make that step up to world title level and challenge for a belt, a legitimate world belt?
Not before July. I'll put it that way. Not before July. You can tell the skills are there. In this fight, he showed a little bit more patience. In this fight, the main combinations and just breaking down Ndongeni in a way throughout the fight, even though you could tell on the 12th round he wanted the knockout. Like, he didn't try to mill it in afterwards thinking, okay, I already won, I don't have to do anything. He tried for the knockout in the 12th. Borderline almost got it, I think, in a way. But they hung in, and I think as soon as the second round ended, you can pretty much tell that Haney was not going to have any problems in this fight. The problem is now when you can say contender, you're in a division now where there's a lot of young contenders. Because like when we talked about the 2018 awards, it's not just you. It's Teofimo Lopez, who's in the same division, who, by the way, scored a vicious knockout over somebody who might be considered the same level as Dwayne. He's not a little bit higher as far as his caliber, Mason Menard. And Joshua Greer's not that far behind. So I think he'll be ready. It just depends on who winds up keeping the belts it'll actually probably be dependent upon what Mikey does after the Spence fight. Win or lose. If he loses, okay, he stays with the lightweight title, and that's probably the title you want to target, because then you will feel he's vulnerable. If he wins, there might be a chance that Mikey just stays at welterweight and then vacates that title. So that's an open title, and you're learning. I think he is now ranked in the WBC, at least top 15. So there's possibilities. I just wouldn't do it before July.
Not just what Mikey Garcia does, but also he has to throw Loma into this consideration, given that Lomachenko is, the word is, his next bout will be against the winner of the winner of the vacant IBF title bout that's going to happen later on this month. I can't remember the guy Comey's fighting, but from what I'm hearing, Arum and Lomachenko, they want the winner of that bout between Comey and the guy he's fighting for the vacant IBF bout. And then I'm also hearing that later on this year, Loma is wanting to fight in the UK against Crawler. So it's not just dependent on Mikey Garcia and what he does. Should he lose to Errol Spence, is also depending on Loma and can he acquire another belt. I'll go to you, Gail. The same question I posed to Daniel, I'm giving it to you now. Yes, Devin Haney, he won, and he dominated throughout. He had his way. But the question is, following that win, is he a contender, and is he ready for a world title, to challenge for a world title, based on what you've seen so far in his career?
No and no. And I say that as a Haney fan. I saw his America debut ringside. He looked great. He's made good progress, steady, slow progress, but he needs to slow his roll. I get it. He's very ambitious. You know, you don't have a kid at 16 go fighting in Mexico and rolling up a couple of fights before he's old enough to fight in the United States if he's not ambitious. And he is. And he's got plenty of talent, but he's only 20 years old. You know, he just needs to slow down, or he needs to accept the possibility that he will suffer a loss being ambitious early in his career. Now, that's not a deal breaker by any means. There are a lot of fighters who've taken that early loss, learned a tremendous amount from it, you know, becomes so valuable to them as they then progress later in their career. And a lot of people point to Canelo's loss to Floyd as that moment for him. So does Haney have that moment in him? And should it happen, is he willing to embrace it? If he is, sure, let him take a shot. Do I think he's ready right now for the elite of his division? No, because if he was, he would have had a knockout Friday, and he didn't. And he hasn't had a knockout in his last couple of fights. Whether he's starting to fight, a little more cautiously, what he might think of as a little more smartly, okay, I have no problem with that. But he needs to know what he's about. And I think sometimes at 20 years old, you're not really exactly sure what your boxing career is about and what you are about. And so if he's not, he needs to either give himself time to figure that out, and there's nothing wrong with that, or he needs to realize that, he might think he's one thing and find out he's another. It'll be interesting to see. I enjoy watching him. I'm enjoying watching his career rise, and give the young man credit. He is acting as his own promoter. He's very smart on the business side. He's learned a lot of lessons watching his mentor, Mr. Mayweather, and good for him. That's the way to have a successful career. End it early, end it before you get hurt, end it before you should be out of the ring, and make some good money that you earn fair and square. That'll serve him well all his life, and I applaud him for that.
I see EJ Boxing Live was in the YouTube chat. Check your Facebook message in regards to your question. EJ, check your Facebook message. What you're asking for is in there. Let's move on to some news here. A lot of light heavyweight news. A lot of light developments in the light heavyweight division over the past 12 hours. In regards to both Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev, Bivol WBO champ? I can't remember. WBO champ, Bivol IBF champ at 175 pounds. Oh, Bivol is the WBA champion. Excuse me. Bivol is the WBA champion. Beterbiev is the IBF champion. I heard about this just 3 in the morning. I saw a pop-up, a news development in my feed. I wrote about it for Three Kings. Well, I wrote about it for Three Kings Boxing. In short, Beterbiev, who's had just as many fights outside the ring with promoters and whatnot than he has had in the ring, signed a co-promotional deal with ESPN Top Rank, while Bivol signed a co-promotional deal with the Matchroom and DAZN. The interesting thing is, Beterbiev was set to fight Joe Smith next month, but because he moved over to ESPN Top Rank, the Smith fight is now off, and now with Bivol fighting for moving to DAZN, he's now going to fight Joe Smith at a date to be determined. I'll go to you, Gail. Just your thoughts on all these on these two developments over the past 12 hours, particularly with Bivol, because last year he was trying to split from Yvonne Michelle. That ultimately failed. He gets back into the ring on a DAZN card. You thought he was going to sign with DAZN when he fought last year to win the IBF belt, vacant IBF belt. He turns around, signs a deal with Matchroom, and now he turns around basically a year later, signs a deal with Top Rank. Your thoughts on all this, as well as the Bivol signing with DAZN and Matchroom?
Right. Just to clarify, you said Bivol in your last description. I think you meant Beterbiev. But the light heavyweight sands have been shifting for some time. In fact, we're going to talk about a light heavyweight fight coming up this weekend, which could further change a few things depending on what happens. It's been just kind of a wild year in what is a very busy division with a lot of guys floating around at the top. And Beterbiev is not the power player in this regard. Right now, the power player will be whoever wins the Alvarez-Kovalev fight, without regard to Bivol, who's the young star in the division. Although you now have Gvozdyk out there due to his win over Adonis Stevenson. Finally, the WBC belt has been free at last, and it's out there in play, finally, in a real serious way. Bivol needed to find a new home. Most of the HBO guys, are going to either Matchroom or DAZN. And it seems DAZN is becoming kind of the de facto recipient of a lot of the HBO fighters, which makes a lot of sense. And a lot of their personnel are over there. So there's a lot of familiarity behind the scenes for them. Beterbiev is just sort of looking for a place to land. We really got this light heavyweight game of musical chairs, and everybody else is sitting down, and Beterbiev saying, "Oh, I'll go sit in that seat. Oh, damn, somebody just sat in that. Well, I got to move over here. Oh, yeah, that seat's taken too. Where am I going to go?" So, here's where he lands. And he's sort of the swing guy in all of these fights. He's not the A side. So he's got to make himself available where he thinks he can wiggle his way in at that top consideration, because it's going to be the winner of Alvarez-Kovalev, Gvozdyk, and Bivol are kind of dealing all the cards right now, assuming those guys keep winning. You're going to have another couple of them wanting to find their way. So you've got the various opponents shuffling the cards around too, playing around. Same guys who have been in play, since early last summer. Joe Smith's been floated as an opponent forever. Marcus Browne is finally getting a fight, has been floated and taken himself off the table because of his own problems, unfortunately. Sullivan Barrera is still out there. It's an interesting time, and the winners are the fans, because there's a lot of fights in the bigger weight divisions, which a lot of fans like. Makeable fights. These guys, other than Stevenson, who's out of the picture, and God bless him, he seems to be on a very long, slow road to recovery. But with him out of the picture, all these other guys, promotional deals aside, seem willing to fight each other. And that is always good for boxing.
I see EJ Boxing Live has joined us on the show. Thanks for joining us, brother. Going to get you into the conversation, talking about the developments in the light heavyweight division with Beterbiev and Bivol. Beterbiev signing with ESPN, top ranked. Bivol signing with Matchroom and DAZN. Your thoughts on the developments? It seems to me, particularly with the Beterbiev signing with top rank, with Kovalev, with Alvarez, still got the Gvozdyk in the mix. It seems like ESPN Top Rank is really focusing on the light heavyweight division, and we may see like a little mini tournament among the light heavyweights with ESPN Top Rank down the road. Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. They need to get together. Everyone wants one champion in any division. I saw Barbarian a couple of hours ago. I wish I would have asked him about that in terms of like ESPN and Top Rank and the like heavyweight division. But obviously, talk about Khan and Crawford. But absolutely, the division is on fire. Over here in the UK, we have like two leading contenders. We have Anthony Yard and we have Joshua Buatsi. But I don't think they're ready for these guys here. These guys who you're mentioning are the top, really good. Even Badou Jack in there, like they if arguably the top 10 in the light heavyweight division is probably the best in all of boxing. You know what I mean? All them guys there, Adonis Rivas has just been knocked off, and like now these guys are vying to be number one, and they're jockeying places with different networks are joining in to make sure they get in a slot. And then to be fair, I don't think there's too much money in the division as it pertains right now. So when if you get one champion like heavyweight division, it'll be good for boxing. Like I said to you, in the UK right now, they're jockeying positions, but in my opinion, I'm looking at the top 10 right now. Joe Smith, Marcus Browne, Badou Jack, Sergey Kovalev, Artur Beterbiev, Sullivan Barrera, Bivol, and Gvozdyk and Alvarez, later Alvarez. Come on, man! And all of them, yeah, most of them, and let me see, the three, all of them, yeah, I think for Kovalev and Badou Jack, yeah, like the top 5, yeah, undefeated. No, yeah, they're all undefeated. I mean, how many divisions you get where you got like all the champions? How many all the champions? And all the champions undefeated. I mean, these guys here, there's some serious guys out here, man. Even the contender, Marcus Browne. Joe Smith is still good, you know. He's still good. You know, he can still be in the picture, you know. There's another guy calls it Sven Flingen from Sweden. I've never seen him. He's lost once, but they've got him at like at number 10. I've never seen him before. Maybe like one of the UK guys can try and knock him off. But arguably, when it comes down to 2019, are these guys going to match up and we're going to have one champion? In my opinion, who's going to be number one? Hey, listen, I think between the Gavagis and that Bivol guy, I'm looking at them. Brera, mate, not Brera, probably them. But Beterbiev, don't sleep on Beterbiev. Don't sleep on Beterbiev. I don't think so. I think his days are done, bro. And I think when he rematches with, is it Alvarez? He matches Alvarez. I think when he goes again, yeah, when he rematches him, I reckon he's gonna get the same dosage, in my opinion. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes in boxing, yeah, a lot of times I've heard from Larry Merchant and many guys, yeah, that rematches really end up differently. You know, Shane Mosley, I can keep going on, Oscar De La Hoya, you know, some of them guys that like real big rematches, they kind of end up the same way, you know, like, you know, it's very hard to change who you are. You know who you are, the nature of fight. And Sergio Kovalev, to me, he's cruising for a bruiser. He's cruising for a bruiser, in my opinion. So the vision's looking hot, and I'm really interested to see who's gonna climb out, and maybe in the 2019. I mean, it's the years that started to see who's gonna claim the division. You know what I'm saying? So it's very interesting.
Follow-up question before I move on to Daniel. Within your discussion about the news in the light heavyweight division, you mentioned the prominent light heavyweights, over in the UK side, Joshua Buatsi and one Anthony Yarde. The UK's reaction to the news that Anthony Yarde was in the works to fight Sullivan Barrera, but Yarde's team decided to pull out of that bout. Reaction in the UK from the UK side in terms of Yarde, who's ranked number 1 by the BO, deciding to say no to an opportunity to fight Sullivan Barrera.
I don't know what they're doing. It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. A lot of people in the UK are getting fed up. They know that he looks like he's got the talent. You know, he's worked his way to get into that position. Why not take the fight? I have no answers. Like, when I talk to Tunde says he's an amateur. He didn't have no amateur experience. Tunde also says like he's still learning. But I'm like, you know, my whole thing was when it comes to these fights, yeah. Mike Tyson won the world heavyweight title at 20. I mean, how much learning you gonna get before one of these young bucks gonna come up and knock you out, or one of them old dudes gonna knock you out? In boxing, like people can coast, they can play around. No, it's not a problem. You gonna get it. You gonna get it. Either you gonna get it sooner or later. So in my opinion, you best to go up than rather hang around and some young buck come knocks you out. So y'all can carry around and just keep doing what he's doing, and like and the thinking that that's how it's gonna be forever. And in the day, but if you're learning, what are you waiting for? If you got opportunity to fight for a world title, go for it. Grab it. You know what I'm saying? Grab it as much as because time is not on your side. Before I finish, Happy New Year to Gail, Happy New Year to Daniel, Happy New Year to you, Michael. Get me a brand new year. Pound for pound boxing. EJ Boxing Live is back on the panel. So I'd just like to say that as well, man.
Appreciate it, brother.
Have you back? Thank you.
Appreciate it,
yes,
brother.
Sir.
Yes, sir. Sounds like to me they're just trying to protect his ranking and the status that goes along with that. Even though, in my opinion, he doesn't deserve it. Even though, in my opinion, Joshua Buatsi is a better fighter, and there's a reason that Eddie Hearn wants to make that fight between Buatsi and Yarde ASAP. So there you go. I'll go to you, Daniel. Your reaction to the developments regarding the light heavyweight division over the past 12 hours. And before you answer, I want to give a shout out to hopefully I can pronounce his brother's name right. Wuna Demos Media. I'll just say that. If I'm pronouncing your name wrong, please let me know. Wuna Demos Media, who says in the chat, first he says salute to the panel. He says that Buatsi, he just isn't ready yet. He says that Yarde needs to step up. They say they just keep trying to protect Yarde and babysit him. Go ahead, Daniel.
Okay, yeah. A Frank Warren fighter being unjustly ranked. Who would have thought in the WBO that you would get that? And yeah, I kind of agree with you. Mike Barotzi's the better fighter right now. But it looks like all of the three major, as far as broadcasting networks when it comes to boxing, looks to have at least now one division that they wholly dominate as far as championships. We know the PBC has the welterweight. We know the DAZN pretty much has all of the middleweight belts. And now looks like ESPN has the light heavyweights. And it's a very interesting time because you would think that after a fight, you would think, like I said, you would normally think after a fight that's been made for months that you wouldn't get another fight so soon. Like I said, we're talking about Joe Smith, but I remember speaking to Joe Smith's manager during the Kovalev card with Alvarez, and he said himself, like, that was supposed to be the fight. It wasn't supposed to be him and Chinema, was supposed to be him and Joe Smith, but they wanted to give him a good comeback victory from it after his loss. So that way I understand it. That's why the groundwork was already there to make the fight with Bivol, but I could see why Bivol signed into this whole situation because of not only did he sign with the DAZN, he said that if he's successful either way, I think it's going to happen either way, whether he wins or loses to Joe Smith, he's moving down. He's going to go back. He's going to go down to super middleweight. And he's been talking about that for a while. Like in the press conference, he always said, I'm a smaller light heavyweight. I know I'm the smaller man almost every time I step up. And he may be seeing a certain redheaded Mexican that suddenly now has not only a DAZN contract, a contract that pays him an obscene amount of money each time they fight.
Well, let's make that clear. As somebody who's in a position to know Bivol fairly well, he said he would move down, but only for certain big money fights. And really, he should have said big money fight, not plural, fight. You know, he would only go down in weight for Canelo. And why wouldn't he? That's a smart move.
I got some kind of breaking news regarding that redheaded Mexican. But proceed.
Well, there's actually no. It's correct. No, he's kind of correct in doing it because there's also Callum. Like I said, either way, they both have WBA belts.
Yeah,
so still in the sanctioning body.
I do not.
I don't think he'll do it for Callum.
For Callum, I don't think he. And I'll tell you, a part of it is I don't think he has a tremendous amount of interest in building an audience in the UK because the truth is it's really minimally there. He wants an audience in North America. He's very much been exposed to the Southern California, Los Angeles crowd. He trains there when he's not home in Russia. He likes them. They like him. Now, he, in some ways, is heir apparent to Triple G's fan base in Southern California, and he knows it. He's also got the blessing of one Andre Ward, believe it or not. Ward thinks the world of Bivol and has kind of taken him under his wing. So he wants to exploit the fan base out in the West Coast, not in the UK. And he can do that against Canelo. And he can do that whether he wins or loses as long as it's a great fight.
Either way, though, he's going down for money.
I don't know about that. I don't know. You know, would we see a replay in some ways of Ward and Kovalev? I don't know. I think there's some very interesting things boiling, little bubbles on the bottom of the pan right there. I would be very interested to see what happens in the next year or two.
Before we move on to other news that I'm kind of holding on to, I want your thoughts, EJ, on Caleb Plant's what many consider his upset win over Jose Uzcategui a couple of days ago to win this IBF super middleweight title.
Oh, that was a great performance, man. You know what? This is the first time I actually sat down and watched him, and you know, when I was watching the broadcast, I was looking at him. I was like, man, you know, this dude is hard, like, because he beat Darrell. And I know it's Darrell's uncle trying to kill him in the ring, but I was thinking, you know what? This kid can punch, and you know, he had a defense, and you know, them Colombian guys, you know about Paul, but you know, he never got off, man. And that's the dude. That's congratulations to Caleb Plant. He was very skilled. You know, the knockdowns came, flurries. It was a masterful boxing performance. Might be a Corey Spence against Mayoga a bit, like, you know what I mean? Because this guy can punch and he just uses skills. You know, this is what you look for. And you know what? It was the first day of PBC as well. We saw it live on ITV over here, ITV4 in the UK. You know, with the link up over here, as you know, with Eubank and James DeGill. That was the first show, and they'll be showing the Broner show over here on Channel 4 as well, and obviously you guys as well. But that performance was amazing. You know, that was a real master performance. I was watching the combinations and the way he fought, and it was caught. You know, he went through stuff. He done the stuff that you watch like in a film as you see it on Vogue. Can he get to the end? Is the Clumber going to catch up? He was catching up, but it was just a little too late. And, you know, deservedly, he won the fight. You know, even though the Clumber might have closed the last 2 rounds here, but arguably, there's not much in it. You know, he got completely, comprehensively outboxed. Now, you think to yourself, how does he match him with the other guys at the weight class? Well, you're talking about Ramirez, you know what I'm saying? You're talking about, who's the other guy? Ramirez, you're talking about
Benavidez has already called him out and said he'd run him out the ring. Yeah,
they know, because the thing is, he's not that big, and you know, he can hit, but you know what I'm saying, like he ain't that very big yet. I think, you know, the thing is, I think if I was him, I'll be come to the UK and challenge the winner out of James DeGill and Chris Eubank or Callum Smith. You know, I'll be looking at European to get that European money. You know what I'm saying? Like I think if you're talking about more, them other fights we're talking about, Benavidez and Ramirez, they're not drawing a lot of money, but if you're a champion and you want to cash in, yo, the UK right now is the place to do. So if you challenge Callum Smith, I think that's a good fight for him. You know, they're both undefeated. That's a great fight for him. And like I said, the winner at Eubank and DeGill, but it was a master performance. And you know what the thing is? I look forward to seeing him again. He has a personality. I believe he's the first Caucasian champion since Kelly Pavlik, I think. Kelly Pavlik to win a belt. And it's like, you know, the thing is, I think he used to do MMA. I think what's happening right now, especially with the onslaught, I think more fighters and more Caucasian fighters, should I say, are coming over. I hope so. You know, boxing the world sport, but you have more diversity. That's what I feel. More diversity. With Al Heyman definitely doing that in terms of his camp. He's doing more diversity and giving people a title shot. And that was in. I mean, the last guy I think was Chris Algieri, actually, maybe. Chris Algieri. I think people went too far. But that was a masterful boxing performance. And salute to Caleb Plant. Salute to him, bro.
What I would do if I were him, I'd fight someone like Quillen or Truax.
Quillen? He's a super middleweight though. Like he don't got no business at. He ain't got
Yeah, Truax. but Quillen's is a super middleweight now. Caleb Plant, he's one of the better super middleweight.
He beats them inside. He beats them inside 6. I'm talking about.
That's what I'm. My point is, it gets him a win. It gets him a name on the resume that people would know. Get him a couple of defense in the bank. Put a little bit of extra more coin in your pocket, and then go for the big money against a Callum Smith or a winner of the Gale and Eubank.
I don't know if it's gonna be there, because this is what I'm trying to say here. Them guys are gonna lock in. You know, the winner out of Eubank and the Gale, we're looking for Callum Smith in a big money fight in the UK. So what I'm saying to you is that, you know, time don't wait for no one. If you can get yourself into that UK mix already, then you're good, because the moment they lock in, then you ain't getting in. And that's where, in my opinion, that's where the money's at. The guy Callum Smith just won the World Boxing Series. Eubank and Ben, they're on pay-per-view in ITV, PBC. He's a PBC fighter. You know what I'm saying? I understand what you're saying about them guys there, but, you know, it's a case of, okay, I fight them guys. Maybe I get injured in that fight. Maybe, remember, he got a heel from that cut. You know what I mean? He's just got his new wife he proposed to. You know what I'm saying? So that's just my opinion. But I don't disagree with what you're saying, Michael. I don't disagree. I understand what you're trying to come from. You know, get more experience and then try to challenge for these guys. But if them guys ain't there, then you know you're looking at the other side with Benavidez and Ramirez. And that's why I don't think you want to go that side of it.
Nah,
That's where you don't go.
Benavidez. No.
No,
That's not the
exactly.
move you want to make. That's not the move you want to make
No,
if you're playing.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. So you might as well go that. This is what I'm saying. I'd rather go that side of the fence than the other side, you know. And the thing is, look, he can just say he come over. What was this? He called out George Groves. George Groves just like, you know what I'm saying? Like yo, George Groves, like, keep a shot another title. You know, people, hey, in UK they love George Groves, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, like, get that UK, fight some of the UK. That's why I feel like a lot of guys come over in the UK. Boxing's the world sport, but you guys are, it's just with the internet, everything's quick now. So in my opinion, that's and also with the PBC in the UK right now, based in the UK, this makes sense. That's just my opinion.
This other bit of news here, I didn't put in the docket. I forgot to. Me and my brothers over at Three Kings Boxing, we wrote about this, and the only people I've shared this with is with EJ over in the UK, and as well as privately with Gail and Daniel and whatnot. And that is, there's been big talk about Gennady Golovkin and who he's going to sign with and where he's going to go and what's next for him following the two fights with the second fight with Canelo. Well, all indications is from what our sources here at Three Kings are hearing and is being reported at other various outlets is that Triple G is not only going to sign with DAZN, but there's negotiations low key taking place for a third fight between Canelo and Triple G, with the fight possibly happening as early as May, no later than September. So your reaction, I'll go to you, EJ, because I want the international perspective. Your reaction to it, all indications are that Gennady Golovkin is going to sign with Matchroom DAZN, and you're going to see a third Canelo Triple G fight this year.
Yo, the zone need it, boy. They need something because their shows are whack, man. I ain't gonna be honest with you, man. I ain't been too impressed with their show. They need a lift, and if they can get that signing, it'll be good. The UK, but I remember when Triple G even came over, it wasn't too much buzz about him. He's not very personable. You know what I'm saying? Like, people they recognize his skills, but in terms of UK, we have this kind of like wrestling culture right now where we have these personalities, Dillian White. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have Big Baby over there, like these kind of characters over there. But in terms of the fight, in terms of the zone over the UK, I don't really think it affects the UK too much, man, because there's no one in the UK really that in. But in America, I guess the zone need that. They've got money to burn. Why not give me something to Golovkin? Why not, man? You know what I'm saying? Give me that money. So, in the UK perspective, I don't think it doesn't really do too much, really, in my opinion. So, it's more American thing. That's what I mean. I'm just gonna be honest with you, bro.
Gail, Daniel, your thoughts?
Golovkin's career just doesn't have that many years left. It just doesn't. And what he's got to do is maximize the dollars. DAZN's the place to do it. None of this strikes me as particularly surprising or newsworthy because it's been talked about for weeks at this point, if not months. It's well known that both 360 and Golden Boy have a hold on the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas for Cinco de Mayo weekend. Now, you could say that they put a hold on that facility or whatever the ranking big facilities in Las Vegas every damn year, and they just mix and match, but nevertheless, they do. And when those holds are put on, those become public record in state commission reports. So that's not news. I wouldn't be surprised to see that all come to pass, that he takes a somewhat limited contract. He's certainly not going to do 10 fights with DAZN, but maybe he maximizes his payday and minimizes their total investment by saying, well, 3 fights, 4 fights. Funny enough, as much of a fan as I have been of Golovkin in the past, and Canelo for what he's accomplished, I'm not all that interested in seeing a third fight. I'm just not. So it'll be interesting to see how the talks progress here.
I can understand that, your argument, Gail. For me, and I'll go to you, Daniel, with this. I felt Gennady Golovkin won by a slight margin in their first fight, but I can't argue. I can't argue with those who feel that Canelo won. Canelo boxed in that first fight, right? Second fight, Triple G basically said to Canelo, stand there and fight like a man. And Canelo did just that, came to him, made Triple G box, and he got the decision. The excitement is going to be there. The anticipation is there, going to be there for a third fight. The issue is, based on what I saw in the first and especially the second fight, I don't know what Triple G can do to beat this guy. I think he's going to lose a third fight and may lose by even wider margin. So, yeah, I can understand why Gail is saying that she doesn't want to see a third fight because we've seen it 2 times before. And for me, Daniel, I don't know what Gennady Golovkin can do to change what Canelo presents to him. I just don't see it.
It's the law of diminishing returns in a way, as far as what Golovkin's chances are, because you went from the first fight, the decision was a draw, but a good amount of people feel Golovkin won. You go to the second fight, there's a decent amount of people that think that it was a draw, but he had the decision. What are you going to do in the third fight? Just based on the trajectory, yeah, he's going to lose. He could lose. And probably lose easier than in the second fight. The problem, and it's not so much the problem, it's as much as the conundrum that the DAZN put themselves in, is you gave Canelo a Mike Tyson contract, except that even though as popular as he is, Canelo's not like the sideshow attraction that Tyson was. You could get away with like Showtime when they signed Tyson the first time. The first big deal. We're getting away with it because it didn't matter who Tyson faced. It was just going to be a crazy sideshow. Canelo's not that. Canelo's an actual boxer, and Canelo's actually going to try to market himself a little bit better because ultimately, in the end, this may be his cash out as well. Remember, think about it. In the next 5 years, he's fought over 50 fights. And you already know he's probably already, at least in 3 years, is himself going to be eyeing an exit strategy. Because I think he's learned from previous greats that there's a difference between leaving a little too early and staying way too long. And I don't think he wants to go to the latter route. As far as the division, Golovkin has no choice in the matter. If he's trying to go after belts, and if he wants to do middleweight, DAZN's the only choice he has. So it's completely understandable to do this, and DAZN needs it because, to me, putting the fight in May will at least prevent DAZN being forced to go to pay-per-view with Canelo this year. If you don't do it in May, then you may force that September fight to be pay-per-view at a time when you came out with commercials, and this is actually something me and Jacob spoke privately, that you could put out commercials saying pay-per-view is dead, but next thing you know, you're going to come out with a pay-per-view. I wouldn't go as far as Jacob mentioned where he could say there could be class action suits because DAZN hasn't explicitly said we will never air pay-per-view. But it does leave a bad taste in people's mouth. When you put out a commercial, you kind of offer this service. You have one of the most popular fighters on the planet, and you're offering it for $10 a month. And then now And then now you have to pay not only the $10 that month, but $75 to get it on pay-per-view when you should have had it in the 1099. That's the position is in. It's inevitable because what other major fight also for Golovkin can get him the money that a Canelo fight can get him right now? That is feasible. There's almost none.
I can't think of any right now. Can't think of not one. Can't think of not one. Want to give a shout out to a lot of discussion in the chat. That's awesome. Punch for Pound, as well as Fink and yeah, mainly Punch for Pound and Fink, as well as W Media, I'll call him. I can't pronounce his first name. Sorry, Punch for Pound. You was asking about the discussion about Bivol and Beterbiev in chat. You came on a little bit late. We had just finished talking about that. So if you want to rewind right quick and listen to our discussion about that, please do. But yeah, we had just talked about it just maybe 10 minutes ago. We just wrapped up the discussion about it then, about those light heavyweights then. Unfortunately, you're just a little bit late. But thanks for joining us on the show, and thanks for listening to us live. One more news development. I wrote this for Three Kings Boxing and submitted my write-up for them. I think it'll drop later tonight, if not tonight, tomorrow. One of the upsets of the year occurred at the very end of the year. December 8th is when Emmanuel Navarrete beat Isaac Dogboe for the WBO belt at 122 pounds. He didn't just beat Dogboe, he beat him up. Well, it apparently Dogboe and Navarrete, they're going to fight a rematch in May. Dogboe's father has said so, as well as the fighter, and Bob Arum. I believe he's over there in the UK. In an interview, he said that both Dogboe and Navarrete are going to fight each other in May. And if anybody, I just want anybody's opinion on this. Is it just me, or am I wrong to think that this is a mistake for Dogboe to jump right back in there to fight Navarrete, given how the fight developed the first time out, given how Navarrete looked to be the physically bigger fighter, the stronger fighter, the much more powerful fighter? He took Dogboe's invincibility, and he beat him to almost to a pulp that first fight. Is it wrong for them to jump right back in there? I think so.
When I talked to him, I actually talked to him a couple of hours ago. I'll put the interview up later. And I asked him about what he's gonna do. I said, you won a championship, now you've lost it. What's your next step? And he said immediately he wants a rematch. He feels like he can do better in the rematch. And I think it's just for himself and also his fan base in Ghana. They feel like, they have a better camp and they try. But Isaac's very humble guy and very just like one of them old school kind of guys. He feels like, I lost, my belt. I want a chance to get it back. And if I don't, then I'll challenge the other guys. I know, in my opinion, is your opinion. Obviously, the team that one sided, but in Isaac's mind, it's like he can do better. And like he wants a chance to do better, and Bob Arum, is going to give him that chance to do better. I agree with you. I don't see how much he can do better, but Isaac's got a heart of the champion. I didn't want to go too much with him about it because I asked him about Amir Khan and about Crawford, but at the same time, his mindset was, I need my belt back, for my country. And that's where he's going to go on. I understand what you're saying, Mike, and I agree with you. But the mindset of the fighter is, when I lose, I want it back. Automatically, I want my bite. I want it back. I can do better, and that it's the same thing with fighter. They're the last person to see when they're supposed to stop fighting. In my opinion, should him and his dad and Bob Arum and them not go for the rematch? But at the same time, in Isaac's head, he'd be thinking about, I still want my belt back. That's how competitive he is. You know what I'm saying? You'd have to like knock him out properly for him to think that. I mean, his face will swell up like a gargoyle. I don't know how much he needs, but that's Isaac. Isaac's just tougher than that. I mean, at some point, you probably have a conversation with him again. Melissa, she runs the top rank for the UK over here, so I'm sure she hit her up and you can ask Isaac yourself. But from my opinion, hey, Isaac is on the right to choose what he wants to do. So if that's what he wants to do, hey, give him the chance, man. That's what I say.
Yeah, I respect his heart, and you're right, EJ. It is his prerogative in terms of what he wants to do next. But I'll go to you, Gail, and then Daniel. Just again, for me, um, not just a not just in terms of style, but in terms of sheer physicality. This may be the wrong dude for Dog Bay. This may be the wrong dude. Too big, too strong, too powerful for him at this point. Your thoughts, Gail, and then you can follow up, Daniel.
You know, I'm going to go back to what we talked about with Plant and Uzcategui, and the questions that needed to be answered there about was the outcome more due to Plant's skill or the fact that Uzcategui had a really bad night at the office. Now, let's get back to Dogbe and Navarrete. If that was a bad night at the office, that was like the worst night at the office of all time, because that was an absolute beat down pummeling. It was shockingly ugly, considering how much he was favored to win that fight. You know, we've seen beatdowns like that, but not with somebody on the upper end of the ledger.
I mean, I was watching the fight with EJ, I believe, on EJ's channel, and we all, and EJ and myself and everybody else on that channel at that time, we were just commented at round, I think it was around at the end of the 11th round, EJ, he had that glazed look in his eyes. You felt it became a sense of danger in there.
Absolutely. It was a horror show as far as he's concerned. Now, here's the question, though. Does he believe in his heart of hearts, does he know something that we're not privy to, that that was just a bad night for whatever the reason was, and perhaps he's not disclosing what it was? He was very gracious at the end of the fight. He gave Navarrete his props. Does he think he's got him figured out? Did he, secretly have the flu and we don't know about it? Was there some other issue? Who knows? Yeah, I agree. On the surface, this seems like a really bad idea. Maybe he knows something we don't. Going to be interesting to watch. It's going to be like I watch some of these, sort of thrill seeker acts, sword swallowers and people like that. I don't really want to look at it straight on. So I might be watching this fight halfway through my closed fingers, worrying about what I'm going to see until things seem to settle down. And if they don't, I'm not sure I want to see anything that ugly again for Dogbe. I really don't.
Your reaction to the fact that Dogbe is apparently going straight on to the rematch against this Brahma Bull, Daniel?
I'll put it to you this way. He says he feels better. He can't do much worse. Like, the only worst thing is he flat out gets knocked out. And you have to look at the situation where there's a lot of pride in it. There's a lot of people thinking that you should have blitzed to Navarrete. And remember, there were a couple of times where he was able to buzz Navarrete with his punches, with his right. But it came at times where the fight was already so far gone that it required a miracle knockout for it to turn it in Dogbe's favor. Like, I understand it. I get it. Like, you have to remember some of the other champions, particularly, like I said, Danny Roman and Ray Vargas, they're eyeing each other. So they may be a little bit busy in that sense. So it's good to have the rematch. Like I said, it's good for Dogbe in the sense to just see if, like I said, if it was just like he just had a bad night, if he does a little bit better. But Navarrete is coming in then now with all the confidence that he has. Not only did you withstand Dogbe in his attacking style, but you flat out neutered him in that ring. It's going to be the same thing with Caleb Plant, whether it's like a rematch with Uzcategui or somebody else. Can you do it again?
Indeed. We'll cover a couple of these comments in the chat. Let me read right quick. Just basically discussion about the light heavyweight landscape between everybody, between Fink, Punch for Pound, W Media, in terms of Beterbiev, Gavostic, Zerto, punch for pound, saying that Bivol has said that if successful against Joe Smith, that Bivol said he's going to move down to 168 pounds. He believes that is going to be against Callum Smith. Who knows? Like we discussed earlier, not sure if Dmitry Bivol will move down for a fight with Callum Smith because it may not be enough money there, punch for pound. We would argue that he would do it for a fight with Canelo at 168 pounds. But for one, Callum Smith, I don't think so, punch for pound. Put it this way, punch for pound. I think with the developments over the past 12 hours in terms of folks moving around network and promotional wise at 175 pounds, and anybody here in the panel, if you agree with me or disagree with me, please chime in. I think Bivol would be more willing to stay at 175 pounds and seek an opportunity with one of the champions than he would moving down to 168 pounds to fight a Callum Smith. Your thoughts? Your thoughts, folks?
Absolutely correct. He's only moving down for one guy, Canelo Alvarez. That's it. And he's made that fairly clear.
Your thoughts, EJ, coming from the UK side. You think that should Bivol is successful against Smith, would you think he would try to go down to fight a Callum Smith, or do you think he'll fight a unification bout with one of the champs at 175 pounds?
Oh man, you know, it's up to him, man. You know, the world is oyster, young man. I don't think it's a good idea for a boxer to go down a weight. I'll be honest with you. A lot of the guys here, when they get to a certain weight, you know, they're getting that money, they're going up. So, boy, I mean, you'd like that, but really and truly, you know, well, the light of the world. Let's think about it. Going down is probably closer than going up. So. I don't know, but like right now, I guess you get to the point where you just beat who's in front of you, and then let's see what happens. But I'll be interested to see what he does from this point onwards.
Yeah, punch for pound was saying that Dan Rayfield is reporting this. I mean, nothing against Dan Rayfield; he does great work for ESPN. But keep in mind, we talked about Crawford and Amir Khan last week. Rayfield, they just reported that just in the past couple of days. I wrote a story about that for Three Kings Boxing nearly a week before Dan Rayfield reported it. So you can take what he says, but sometimes I take what he says with a grain of salt, because there are folks out here who beat him to the punch in terms of stories. Not disrespecting what he does, but I'm just saying. Let's move on. I'm just saying. Let's move on to some fights here, previewing some fights, because there's so many fights this weekend. I want to split these fights up between everybody here in the panel, and there were so many fights I couldn't even put all of them down in the docket. I'll go to you, Daniel, first. Bryant Jennings is going to be fighting on ESPN Top Rank, I believe. Going to fight Oscar Rivas. I look at this. Rivas is undefeated, 25-0, but he's one of these. Okay, no. Before we go to the fight, before we go previewing to the fights, there was a question by Fink in the chat. Let me look it up right quick. His question was in regards to Anthony Joshua. Let me find it right quick. His question was basically the reaction to the low ball offer that Anthony Joshua gave to, I believe, Dillian White. EJ, I'm going to you on this one, since this is in your part of the world. Fink wanted our reaction to the low ball offer that Joshua apparently gave to Dillian White in terms of a possible rematch.
You know the thing about it, yeah. I'll give you my opinion on what you did. So Dillian saying it's a low ball offer. Well, Dillian thinking like he just pay-per-view star, is a pay-per-view star. Derek Zori just beat Lucas Browne on pay-per-view. So he's thinking he needs a pay rise. But basically, I think he's probably getting the same money he got for Derek Zori and Lucas Browne probably together. And Dillian probably thinks, nah, that's I should get more. And Anthony just says, no, well, you haven't done anything. You don't deserve more. So I think more or less it's the same, but Dillian just sees it like I should get much more for a fight. But no one really thinks it's a fight where you know, I don't know if anyone on the panel will beat you and win, but he's complaining about a low ball offer. But in the day, let's talk about Dylan. Do you believe you can win? You see, he's asking about, no, I should get paid much more, but I don't know, does anyone even believe you can win, Dylan? You know, and that's the real roots of the question. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, he's a number one contender. He's beat who's in front of him. He's the most improved fighter this year, Dylan. But if I'm, in my opinion, I'll do what Tyson Fury did and Deontay Wilder. Let's go and find a new dance partner, and there's plenty for you. Big Baby's a good dance partner. If he's not locked up with AJ, there's other guy. There's the why you fight Ruiz, the fastest hands on the planet. You know, there's so many guys options here that you could fight and have a dance partner and have good. Luis Ortiz, I heard he might be fighting Usyk. So there's loads of dance partners. If Anthony Johnson winning, you're a pay-per-view star yourself. But in the day, they were complaining about the low ball offer, and it's a big thing over here. But Anthony Joshua's not. He's not the flavor of the month this month. That's all I was gonna say right now. But until everyone's complaining this and that about Anthony Joshua fight that, but when Anthony Joshua fights, everyone turns up and it's a star-studded stars and the celebrities. Dillian's still trying to get his way up there. He shouldn't be so quick to get in there with AJ, in my opinion, anyway, because where do you go after you lose to AJ? So, but yeah, it's a big thing in the UK that Dillian, complaining against AJ about a low ball offer, but hey, this is boxing, you only get, do you get what you deserve or you get what you negotiate? It's up to you.
What's this news in the chat, Gail, in the private chat about one Kelly Pavlik? Because I hadn't heard of this regarding Kelly Pavlik.
There is some crazy, wacky news out there that Kelly Pavlik, yes, that Kelly Pavlik, was going to stage a comeback at cruiserweight, and this was in the wind, rumors only, long before this weekend fight between Plant and Uzcategui. And then of all things, Pavlik's name comes up, as the answer to a trivia question, which is, who's the last white American champion? Pavlik. Well, he was also saying tonight on his podcast that he's been approached to do, rumor only, Dancing with the Stars. So take this for what you will. What I told Kelly is, listen.
I'm sorry.
I know, but he was saying, oh my God, who's going to get me through that? And the truth is that could easily be a discussion. He works with guys who handle a lot of Hollywood type figures, especially music celebrities, the kind of folks they like to try to get on the show. And I said to him, listen, whether you do it or whether you don't, you can't do much worse than Sugar Ray Leonard, Floyd Mayweather, and Victor Ortiz did on Dancing with the Stars, because they didn't exactly represent boxing too well. The only boxer who ever shined was Layla Ali. So there you go. But yes, this discussion is in the wind. Is there going to be anything come of it? Who the hell knows? It's boxing.
Oh gosh, he got to be in his mid-late 30s right now. Ugh. Oh, and if he does come back,
I'm gonna do a quick chat on that stat. I'll get back to you. I'll put it up here in our internal chat window so you can report it. I'll check the age. And I'm trying to remember what his last fight was, but I'm going to check that because I don't report rumors. So let me get back to you.
I think that was Sergio Martinez. Yeah. I was watching it when I came on here. He's on the Joe Rogan podcast, and that's what he was talking about, Dancing with the Stars, and he has his own podcast, like Gail just said. So he's just talking a lot. He feels like that, but like the Dance with the Stars is probably good. That's a good career move for him. He's got a lot of things to work. I don't think he's looking to come back, but hey, you never know. Like you said, it's boxing. You never know.
And if he does make a comeback, he better not have Jack Lowe as his trainer, because just no. Jack Lowe he's a one-off. He just happened to luck up to find a really, really good fighter. He hasn't done anything with anybody since. Gus is in the YouTube chat. He says Isaac did hurt Navarrete twice, so there is a baseline. Darbe was not in top shape and didn't spar with any credible boxers, so there are areas in which to remedy in terms of Isaac Darbe. I hear you, but again, just physical standpoint, I just can't get that physical beating out of my head.
So here we go. Let me jump in on our last discussion.
Okay.
Kelly Pavlik is not as old as you might imagine. He's only 36. He'll be 37 in April. And his last fight, he had 4 additional fights after his loss to Sergio Martinez in 2010. His last fight was July 7th, 2012 against Will Rosinski in the Home Depot Center, aka StubHub, aka Dignity Health Center.
StubHub. I ain't calling anything else than StubHub.
I know. I can't get around that either. So there you go. He won a unanimous decision. He also fought 2 sort of journeymen, but at least they had, significant winning records. Yeah. So, hey, it's fun to talk about. Is anything going to happen? Nah. Is Kelly Pavlik enjoying his moment? Oh, hell yeah. Why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he?
Indeed. Let's get back to the previews. I'll go back to you, Daniel. We're talking about Bryant Jennings fighting Oscar Rivas. I look at Rivas and I see how he's built, and I use it as a baseline in terms of his fighting style. He's not tall for heavyweight, and he's squatty for heavyweight. He's like 6 foot, 6'1". He has the muscular frame of like an NFL linebacker. And I think that plays a role into how he fights. He looks big and strong, but I question what kind of true power he has. And I don't see him being active enough to deal with the likes of Jennings, who can be sometimes up and down as a fighter. But Jennings is a pro's pro who know what to do in there. And I just think from a technical and experience standpoint, he's going to be too much for Rivas. Your thoughts?
Yeah, but it's a good fight to get. I agree with you. Like, so I think Bryant Jennings is going to win this one. But it is a good fight for him to develop. You have an undefeated guy, a guy who, like I said, who is built like a Mack truck in a way. And who, in many ways, fights like he's driving a Mack truck in a way. But ultimately, this is about rebuilding Bryant Jennings to be in the legitimate discussion as far as top 10 heavyweights. Because, especially after Wilder Fury, right now, like I said, the 3 main guys are Wilder, Fury, and Joshua. Everybody else is just trying to get one of the 3 as a dance partner. And Jennings, unfortunately, because of the layoffs, because of how he's been matched up since. I say how matched up since that, particularly that loss to Ortiz. It hasn't done well for him as far as rebuilding his stock. And in the meantime, you've had, as far as personalities, you had somebody like Big Baby Miller come in and put himself in the periphery of discussions into it. And like I said, through the magical machinations of the WBC, you technically still have Dominic Brazil as part of that discussion, whether we like it or not. So it's a way to rebuild it, and it gives it a good style going to it, because who's going to be able to beat him is going to be able to use his size and his skill set to win out. It just means that he has to look at, and he has to get enough buzz in order, like I said, to enter that discussion where if you say make Big Baby versus Bryant Jennings, and it wouldn't sound like a perplexing move.
That fight between Jennings and Rivas is going to happen in New York, Verona, New York, on ESPN Plus. Going to be on the 18th. On that same date of January 18th, and I'll go to you, EJ. Demetrius Andrade, to him, quick return to the ring. He fought in October. He's coming back to fight again at the mid-January. Going to be defending his WBO middleweight belt. Won that vacant belt due to Billy Joe Saunders and his issues. He's fighting a former opponent of Billy Joe Saunders, Artur Akavov. Akavov, most known for that fight with Billy Joe Saunders, who came into the ring looking like crap, and he fought like crap. And to many, Akavov beat him that night. It was just that Saunders got a decision he did not deserve. Okay, Akavov, as good as well as he looked against Billy Joe Saunders, to me, Andrade is a whole different proposition, particularly if Andrade is anywhere close to his A game. If he's close to how he looked in his last time in the ring, I just think from a skill standpoint, height, length, he's just going to be too much for Akavov. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I didn't watch that fight, man. I heard it was terrible with Billy Joe Saunders against that Akavov. Yeah, I didn't see that, and I probably won't watch this Dmitry thing. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I might watch it, yeah, because there's a lot of fights going on in the weekend, if you mean, but it won't be at the top of my list to watch that fight. I'm only interested in name fights, and if he was to get upset, then I might be watching. But I expect Dmitry Andrade to just win comfortably, or maybe push the knockout. I don't see no trouble there. I really don't. But this is boxing. But in my opinion, Dmitry Andrade is very skillful, and his southpaw is very good. So I don't see no trouble. It's interesting that he's fighting all the opponents that Billy Joe Saunders faced. And what is Billy Joe Saunders vacated his belt and ran for the hills? It's interesting. I mean, I don't know what Billy Joe Saunders is doing with himself, but Dmitry Andrade, in my opinion, he's another one that, like Gary Russell Jr., don't you think he needs to make a move on and try and get a name? Find a name for now, I mean, this is the thing in boxing. You can continue fighting these no-name guys and making little paydays, and when you fight step up, you lose, innit? So, in my opinion, he needs to fight a name guy in the division and make a splash in boxing and try and go for that pound-for-pound ranking, or try and at least solidify yourself as the #1 guy in your division. To be fair, that's that guy. I expect him to win handily. No problem there.
Well, at least he's being active. I'll give Andrade credit. He's being active. And the signing with DAZN, it was a good move. That arrest for that gun charge, it's not a good move. But at least lately he's trying. He's trying from a business perspective and as well as staying in the ring. So I have to give him that, even though as many times as he's kind of shot himself in the foot career-wise. This Andrade Akavov fight is going to be a DAZN card. It's going to happen in NY. Jorge Linares is going to be fighting on this card. TJ Doheny, who recently signed a deal with DAZN and Matchroom, he's going to make the first defense of his IBF junior featherweight belt. But Chris Algieri is going to fight on this card as well. But I'm going to skip those fights and go to you, Gil, and talk about this next fight. I'm going to talk women's boxing here. Amanda Serrano, in my opinion, absolutely no doubt about it, one of the best women's fighters in the world, regardless of weight, pound for pound. She's fighting a fighter by the name of Voraberger for a vacant belt at 115 pounds. I think Serrano's going to win here. The question I have is, Gail, that Serrano is going for her 7th title in 7 different divisions. She's moved up and down in weight in her career. There's been questions leading into this fight whether this fluctuation in weight is wise on her part long term. She's been clapping back at folks in regarding to those questions via Twitter by basically posting selfies and saying, look, I know who I am, I know my body, I know how I train. Y'all need to fall back, I know what I'm doing. That being said, still, there are concerns, man or women, who go up and down in weight instead of just staying in one basic range. Do you have any concerns for her? The issue going up and down in weight, no matter how hard she trains, no matter how disciplined she is, the weight issue, do you think that will catch up with her eventually?
It may. It's a tremendous weight drop. She fights.
I mean, she fought 140, 135, 140 her last time.
Absolutely.
She's going down to 115.
She's listed as a super lightweight. She fights quite a bit at lightweight. Everybody knows she wants to get her hands on Katie Taylor. And there are plenty of reasons why. And it'd be a great fight. But she's smart to keep busy. I'll give her that. Is she smart to keep busy fighting at super flyweight? Super flyweight. Can you imagine a male fighter who went from 135 to 115 for a fight? We'd all say, there was something crazy going on, but she's going to do it. She's going to fight a vacant WBO World Female Super Flyweight title. The opponent is from Austria. Her name is Eva Voraberger, like you said. She is 24-5, very limited opposition. She's fought all fights have been in, most of them have been in Austria. The only exceptions have been in Germany. So you expect that she certainly wouldn't have the firepower to go after Serrano. And she even fights mainly at bantamweight. So they're both coming down for this fight. Just sort of crazy. I mean, I guess it's to get that notch, you know, in the record. I hope Serrano knows what she's doing. She's a smart woman. She has a good team. She's a veteran. She's taking every advantage of the growth in women's boxing that is coming at the end of her career. So I get it that she's really trying to strike right now while the iron is hot for women's boxing. But boy, we're a mistake or not. If she can do it, you know, I hope it's also one and done for her, and that she can take this other girl out fairly easily. She has one loss on her record, so it's not as if she's risking an O to do it. I think she'd reconsider if that was the case, but I think she's willing to trade to get yet another title. But I mean, hell, what's she gonna do with it? Is she really gonna defend it? No. And in the very smaller weight divisions for the women, there's some real talent there, and she can't be messing around with that. So I don't know whether it's a party trick, whether it's, you know, if she's one of these women that can really bite the bullet, get the weight off, you know, for that moment in time. You know, all she has to do is make 115 Friday on the scale. That's it. As long as she gets there. It's something I don't particularly love, though. I really don't, especially when they're coming down. Going up's another story. Going down, and you know, she's over 30. I mean, I'm here to tell you, and any woman over 30 or over 40 or can tell you how hard it is to pull that weight off as you get older. So I'll be very curious to find out if she'll be honest about how hard it was and what she went through to lose that weight. I'm not too happy about that part.
I mean, putting on weight and then taking off weight and muscle and just messing with your metabolism like that.
And she may not pay and you're a fitness expert, Michael. I know most of our listeners know that. And you know that the hell to pay might not be until she's 40, 45, 50 and has a real metabolism problem. That is not good for her.
No, it's not. No, it's not long term. So I hear, yeah, she can do it fine. For me, if it was me, I mean, who am I? I'm just a guy who just who just has a low rank podcast, but whatever. But if it was me, I would stay in that 130, 140 pound range and eventually try to get a shot with Katie Taylor because she has the skill and she has the power to give Katie Taylor a hell of a fight. It just doesn't make any sense to me just going down, just glory seeking for a title that she's not going to defend. I don't get it. I just don't get it.
I think after she goes down, yeah, I think when she comes back up, I think Katie Taylor will fight her because she'll probably take a lot out of herself as well. And I can understand she's trying to get belts and stuff like that, but you already see with Roy Jones and a lot of guys here, or females, or anyone going down to that weight and then trying to build your strength back up. That's very hard. I hope she changes her mind, you know, because you know maybe Katie Taylor. I talked to Katie Taylor about her, and she goes, she wants to fight that fight. So they want that fight, and I think it will just suit Matchroom. If they hear she's going down the weight to fight that fight, they'll make it in a heartbeat, guaranteed. It's timing. The boxing's all about timing, so they'll take that. They'll take that next, definitely.
Katie Taylor, who I believe is going to fight another unification fight coming up. Correct me if I'm wrong, EJ.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, she is. But I was saying later on after they'll definitely take that. Yeah, she is going for another unification. I get people I don't know, never heard of, never seen, never nothing. But it's all about names. People in the UK and Ireland, they want her to fight Serena. They want that fight. So I guess with Matchroom, it's just about timing. But yeah, she's going for another title. And Katie and also Clarissa Shield, they're facing women boxing right now, both Olympians. So that's where people are interested in.
On the fights that we've discussed, are all happening on the 18th. I want to move on to January 19th. Las Vegas Showtime pay-per-view card. I'll leave the main event of that card as the final fight we will talk about. Gus also mentioned on that card. I'm not going to talk about it here, but I want to give acknowledgments to Gus, who said Jack Tapor fighting Hugo Ruiz for a belt at 126 pounds. That is on that card. Like I said, unfortunately, because so many fights on the ledger and a little bit pressed for time, I don't want to go over. Gus says she must be on clenbuterol. I don't know, but again, I don't know. I hope she knows what she's doing. She seems to be a very smart person who knows her body, but she's tempting. She's tempting fate. She's playing with fire, going down that far, and probably going to go back up to fight Katie Taylor. She's playing with fire. I'll just say that. Let's talk about the 19th. I'm going back to you, EJ. Badou Jack. He fought DeGale. He moved up. Eventually fought Stevenson. A lot of people felt he won that fight. He hasn't done much since. He's returning back to the ring Saturday, Las Vegas Showtime pay-per-view to fight Marcus Browne. Marcus Browne has had a lot of troubles outside the ring. For me, I don't want to disrespect Marcus Browne, but I just think that Badou Jack is going to roll this dude.
Yeah, well, Badou Jack, to be fair, he's still, remember, this is like heavyweight. He's still trying to make inroads into his division. And you saw what Stevenson did to curl him up. So I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I would put some money down with Marcus, That's because, you know what? I look at him and I look with the Stevenson fight, and he's okay at that weight, but he wasn't packing too much heat like he was down in 168, man. I'm telling you, at 175, it's a big jump. And Marcus has been there for a minute. I won't be surprised if Marcus lights him up, boy. He lights him up like a Christmas tree. No, I'm serious, because I was looking at him against Stevenson, and Stevenson was good. I mean, it was a hard fight, but it was like, and that probably took a lot out of Stevenson. But at the same time, I didn't think he was bending. I didn't think he was making the thing like what he did to Girl. I had the girl's teeth knocked out and stuff. You know what I mean? He was doing the same things, but when Stevenson started putting it on him, he started folding up. He was even to the point that he was curling over, looking the way out. So this on the performances, I like Marcus in that fight. But I guess we'll see. Maybe he's acclimated into the way, and maybe he's got better. And to be fair, Badou Jack has been fighting the top echelon of each weight class he's been in it. So we have to see.
I just don't trust him. I don't trust what I've seen, Brown. I think he's too inconsistent. And I'll go to you, Daniel and Gail. He's pyrite to me, Marcus Browne. He's pyrite. He's fool's gold.
Wonderfully put. Wonderfully put. Yeah, he just has not fought the level of opposition that Badou Jack has. I mean, arguably, you could say his toughest opponent has been Shawnee Monahan. Well, unless you want to say that his toughest opponent was, maybe you could make the case his toughest opponent was Thomas Williams Jr. But seriously,
and look how the dirty stuff he did to him.
Yeah, exactly. No, I have nothing to add to that. EJ, you've won some crazy ass bets on long shots before. Be my guest, and you can crow about it later, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, that's another one. The 2019, the early one, right?
Oh, wow. Well, pyrite is a very good descriptive when it comes to Marcus Browne. Like, it's not so much that he's fool's gold, it's just the fact that he hasn't been tested. And you're jumping from not being tested to being Badou Jack. And that's, like I said, that's a tough hill to climb, even though, like I said, Badou Jack, like to EJ's point, didn't bring up as much of the powerful super middleweight when he fought Stevenson, but he did make that second half round of the fight a living hell for Stevenson.
I mean, the only chance I give Browne if he somehow catches and hurt Badou Jack early. If Badou Jack once he gets warmed up, it's a wrap. It's a wrap.
Yeah. Well, the main factor that pulls in Marcus Browne's favor is that it's been done before to Badou Jack. So there is a chance. Like I said, but the problem is like that is a steep hill to climb when a lot of times you haven't been active. Granted, it's been in Marcus Browne's case, your actions to the side of the ring that's kept you really outside of it. So that is a tough hill to climb. Like EJ's going with a knockout for Marcus Browne. I'm going just a brutalizing 12-round fights for Badou Jack to win.
Okay, let's who's going to be part? Gus mentioned the fight between the featherweight bout between Tapora and Hugo Ruiz. They're fighting for Tapora's interim belt at 126. Ubali is fighting Rashid Warren. For those who follow me on Twitter or whatnot, you know how I feel about that fight. I think that Warren is getting a title shot. They're fighting for the vacant WBC bantamweight belt, by the way. I think that Rashid Warren is getting a title fight he does not deserve. So I'm like pretty meh on that fight. I'm probably won't even watch it. So let's move on to the main event. I'm hearing some background noise. Someone needs to mute. Manny Pacquiao fighting Adrien Broner for a belt that Pacquiao holds. I mean, look, the fight is happening. In my opinion, Adrien Broner is getting an opportunity that he doesn't deserve. I mean, when people will reward sensationalism, just the way the world goes right now. I'll go to you first, Gail. All this when I look at this fight, it just depends on what Pacquiao shows up. If Pacquiao is halfway the fighter that we've known him to be, he beats Broner pretty easily. Hands are too fast, feet too fast. He's too active. Broner, too heavy leg. Doesn't throw enough punches. And to me, he doesn't have the hunger. But if Pacquiao, his age starts to show, Broner, he has a decent shot. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. Everyone looks at this fight and says, really, come on, Adrien Broner, are you kidding? For a pay-per-view at $75, Adrien Broner? No. But every story about a superhero needs a villain. So we have Pacquiao in the Superman role, and Broner is Lex Luthor. So you have the drama, you have the good guy and the bad guy, you have the narrative.
Excuse me, I'm interrupting. I was expecting a Game of Thrones analogy there. I'm a little bit disappointed.
Well, we could have that too. But truly, you have good and evil, the forces of good, the forces of evil going on here. That is the narrative for every great epic story since the beginning of time, right? That's what we've got here. And we keep waiting for Pacquiao to age, and he has aged, no question about it. But he hasn't had that horrible getting old overnight situation that we've seen with a lot of guys. He's 40 years old. He's 40 years old. It's crazy to think about it, and his road to the Hall of Fame is assured. He has nothing left to prove. 8 division champion. You could argue at this point of his career, the greatest Asian Pacific boxer of all time, certainly the greatest Filipino boxer of all time. Opened the door in many ways to all the Filipino fighters we've seen since, and the rise of Asian boxing in the Western Hemisphere is largely due to him. When he fought Timothy Bradley, he vowed he was retiring. I sat right there and looked right at him in the press conference. I'm retiring. I promised my family. And we kept pressing him. Come on, Manny, really, you're going to retire? No, I promised my family. And then finally, after about 15 minutes of beating him down, he said, well, I'll see how it goes. Well, you never know. We'll see how it feels. Come on. We all know what was going to happen. And here he is. But he has seemed to be rejuvenated, in many ways. He was truly rejuvenated when he fought Jesse Vargas. It was a good performance. It was a good performance against Bradley. The Horn fight, everybody knows that he probably narrowly won, except that he was fighting on the Challengers turf in front of a huge crowd at home in Australia, and that didn't turn out so well. And he has just got to buy time before he could run for president of the Philippines. And he's got until 2022. That's the next election where he is old enough to run. So he sees no reason, if he's enjoying himself, not to keep fighting. For us, the fans, we cannot like the fact that Adrien Broner got this chance against him. And we cannot like the fact that we might see a beatdown. But the truth is, Manny Pacquiao will not be around forever. And for everybody who has valued him and valued his career and what he stands for and has enjoyed all the excitement that he's brought us all over the years, you know what? He's one of those guys that you owe the respect to him of his legacy. Okay, maybe you don't buy the pay-per-view, but give him the respect he deserves. He's come in looking good, well-trained. He's back in the fold with Freddie Roach. Thank God. He seems to be a very happy guy. And when you have a happy Pacquiao, generally good things happen.
Broner, it is what it is. He acts like he's a Stark, but he's one of those trash-ass Greyjoys.
He besmirches the name of our sport that we enjoy. He really does. All you needed to know is that when the news conference, the media workout was scheduled in Los Angeles here a week or two ago, they had both agreed to appear at the wild card, Freddie's gym in Hollywood. Except at the last minute, Broner decided, nah, I'm not doing that. You're going to have to come across town to come see me at another gym. Okay, fine. Some people did. And all he did was sit around and yap. He didn't put on any kind of workout. He made no effort whatsoever. That's the story of Adrien Broner. Like a lot of guys, including one that we do not name on this show, and I'm a panelist, he has squandered a lot of natural talent due to poor work ethic, problems outside the ring. It's unfortunately an age-old story, just as the forces of good and evil. The guy who screws up his boxing career because he won't put the work in.
I would say Broner is a Lannister, but at least Lannisters, they pay their debt, unlike Broner.
Very well done. EJ, I'll be counting on you for the Game of Thrones reference.
I'll go to you, EJ, and then lastly, you, Daniel. Your thoughts on this fight between Manny Pacquiao and Adrien Broner?
Yeah, Broner looked like a bum, man. To me, he looked like he's taking it seriously. I'll be honest with you. I ain't impressed.
That's why I compared it to the Greyjoys.
Yeah, I was watching All Access, and I'm not impressed with him. And I was looking at him. He doing the Floyd with the watches and the money. How much of the training are you really doing to beat Pacquiao? Because to me, he's got his beard in. He just looks. Manny Pacquiao, centered about what he's doing. Family. He's fighting, giving money. Just like, I'm not comparing the two in terms of what they do outside the ring. Just in ring, what I've been watching, and I'm not impressed, man. I'm just not impressed. I don't know if he's been pushed hard. I don't know if he wants it. He's still like just doing what he's doing, being AB, being a clown. I think to me, I'm just gonna be honest, watching all that. I think he's just doing it for the money, just to get his money. And I don't think he's gonna perform. That's what I'm getting. The vibes I'm getting. Maybe I need to watch another All Access, but I just watched 1 and 2. And it's even worse. Like, the second one's even worse. And I see them training, and I was like, bro, like, you ain't even doing press ups properly. Like, the sprints, your body still looks the same. I don't see that intensity. Maybe that's what they wanted to show us. Like, I just wasn't impressed. Then they were supposed to have the video workout in the wild card, and then he went to the Goose's gym over there. Like, I don't know what he was doing over there with his hat on his head. So I'm just not impressed, man. I you know what I mean? Like, I used to like Broner, but his dedication, and Gelb did point at a time where he came overweight a couple of times, and like your dedication to the sport, like in terms of Floyd. And I was talking to Bomac for Crawford, like, because he said Crawford could have been fine at 147, but we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're just gonna go through the weights, and you know, he 135 became undisputed at 140, and now we're at 147, right? And Broner knew he could go straight to 147, but because of that, he suffered from that, and I don't think he's recovered, and I don't expect him to win. And you know, like, and that's the way until I see something else. So I'm not too happy about what I'm seeing in the preparation as a fighter. Like, so I'm just not impressed. But yeah, it's a fight, it's an event, and we're all gonna be watching it because Broner is action and Manny Pacquiao is action as well. So hopefully I'm wrong and they have a great fight.
Your thoughts, Daniel?
If we're gonna have Game of Thrones, DC comparisons, you're watching literally then Batman going from the Joker to the Condiment King. Because I'm sorry, like, if I'm gonna semi take this seriously, Broner has not shown one iota that he has improved his one fundamental flaw, and that is when he has to punch, when he gets punched, he has to mentally reset. He's not a natural counterpuncher. He's a good offensive fighter, but he's only a good offensive fighter when it's guys that he knows can't hurt him. We know Manny can still pack a punch. And not only because of the power, because of the speed, if Broner hasn't really adjusted to being a better counterpuncher, what chance does he have against somebody that still has the hand speed that Manny has? That has the footwork that Manny has? Now, yes, which Manny shows up, that's a good question. But if you have a good camp with Freddie and you no longer have to be bothered by Bob and the plans that he had where he was going to sacrifice you to Terrence Crawford, you feel a little bit more free because, okay, you beat up Broner, and if Keith Thurman beats Jesse Vargas, you know what? You can do your mandatory. Or you can do the worst case scenario now, like I said, now that he's without Heyman. Like I said, the worst case scenario is a rematch with Floyd because he keeps talking about it. Not a rematch with Floyd. They'll be stupid enough to challenge Canelo in September. So.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah. That's it. I told you guys in 2019, that's my ultimate fear, that not only will they do it, but Floyd's ego will make it to the point where he will challenge Canelo for the Mexican Independence Day weekend date again. But we have to see, because we all know, like Gail mentioned, he's only biding time. He's mainly waiting 3 years until he's, like I said, he's old enough to be president of the Philippines now. Granted, we don't know what's going to happen when it comes to politics because they have their own mini version of Donald Trump over there.
Yeah.
And that man may not cede power that easily, even to somebody as beloved as Manny. And if we're gonna get into politics, yeah, Filipino politics are pretty deadly. And nobody's safe. So
yeah, there's a reason there's a reason that Pacquiao basically has security 24/7.
Yep. Yep. When there's politicians and like their entire campaign staff and family and buses being blown up, yeah, you have to worry. But like I said, he's biding his time for that. If he looks good, if he enjoys it himself, that's fine. Just don't give me the rematch with Floyd. Fight Thurman. That's fine. That's a fight you could probably win because we don't know what Thurman is at this point. But then you know what? If he beats Mikey, just like Bob was going to sacrifice you to Terrence Crawford, Al's going to sacrifice you to Errol Spence.
And I agree with the general assessment here. One, that Broner doesn't deserve the fight, as I said earlier, that, you know, if I don't trust Broner in terms of his training habits, in terms of his discipline, something that EJ noted during his discussion, his breakdown of the fight. And because of that, if Manny Pacquiao is even 50% of the fighter that we've known him to be over the years, that, you know, he's going to win. He's going to win rather comfortably. I just don't trust Broner. I think EJ, he had to dip out. I'm going to start shutting the show down. I'm going to start with EJ. He had to dip out. It's late or early over there in the UK time, like a 5-6 hours difference. They're ahead of us here in the States. If you want to talk boxing with him, you can check him out on his YouTube channel, EJ Boxing Live. You can also check him out at the same place, EJ Boxing Live, on Facebook and Twitter. I go to Gail for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk Dancing with the Stars, Game of Thrones, small business advice. Let the folks know where they can find you.
Well, first of all, if you happen to be in Las Vegas this weekend, I will be ringside. Come say hi, look me up, let's chat boxing. Hell, I might even go to Floyd Mayweather's little freebie fight and see Liddell on Thursday night. We'll see what happens. But come say hi. I'd love to chat with you, all things boxing. And when I do it here, I'm doing it on behalf of Communities Digital News. It's where my regular column runs. It's Digi News, COMMDIGI News.com. My first preview column of this weekend's fight will probably publish late tonight.
I see Gus, one final comment in the chat. Gus from Corruption in Boxing, he said that if AB just stands but there behind the guard, high guard, this could be Pacquiao versus Joshua Clottey. I think, Gus, you bring up a good point. Despite our criticisms about Adrien Broner, the one thing he is tough. He doesn't get knocked out. He doesn't get stopped. I think he's going to find a way to go the distance. Problem is, I don't think he's going to do much anything. He's going to lose. He's not going to do much of an attack. As Daniel noted, he has to have his feet and his mind set in order for him to punch. He's not a natural flower of punches. He doesn't let the punches naturally flow like he should, which really undermines his natural talent. And, you know, again, because of the issues with discipline, I don't think he's as confident as he talks. Pacquiao's going to have his way with him, going to beat him by decision. Daniel from the Inscriber, for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat, let the folks know where they can find you.
Sorry about that. Okay. Yes, you can find me on Twitter, Rockets99. Tomorrow night, I'm doing my show with Joe and Francis before Boxing News. We're holding the show talking everything, all of the fights that are happening in. And shout out to Virgil Hunter, who apparently now has to deal with Amir Khan again for this fight.
Yeah, with all the midst of the Pacquiao, all the midst of the Crawford Amir Khan news broke over the past few hours that Amir Khan will be trained by Virgil Hunter for this fight. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, I don't think it's going to change, but Crawford he's going to beat him up. It's going to be like slow death. It's not going. I don't know if he'll just catch him with one shot earlier, but I just think over time he'll find a way to break him down physically and mentally. And we all know with Khan's chin problems, once you touch him, it's good night, Irene. If you like what you've heard this evening, please hit that like button on YouTube. For those who are listening to us live on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and also hit that bell so you get early alerts on when our next episode is going to drop. Also, subscribe to us on iTunes, subscribe to us on SoundCloud. We'd love for you to leave a review on iTunes. A good review will be read. And if you listen to us on SoundCloud, I'd love to hear your commentary there on SoundCloud during each after listening to each episode. if you want to talk boxing with me or music or fitness, you know what it is on Twitter, Brother JR at Brother JR76. As I said to begin the show, if you want to find out all information regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, the blog page is the place to go to, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com. Check the Rider page for links to where to find us all over social media, where to find the show on all available platforms that carry podcasts, minus Spotify. And as I said again early in the show, very few things are free, including the production of this podcast. So there is a donate button on the Pound for Pound Box Report blog. I don't care if it's $1, 50 cents, $5, $10, whatever you can spare would really help. Want to thank Gus from Corruption in Boxing. Want to thank EJ Boxing Live, who was in the live YouTube chat. Want to thank Fink, Pound for Punch, W Media. Sorry, I'm having Juana Demos Media. Again, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Want to thank all of them for joining us in the live chat. Next episode, we will do a recap of Pacquiao Broner. We will do a recap of Bryant, Jennings, Oscar Rivas, recap of Demetrius, Andrade, Akavov, Amanda Serrano, her fight, Badou, Jack, Marcus Browne, and we will do a preview of Jaime Munguia, who's returning to the ring the weekend of the 26th. He's going to fight a Japanese fighter by the name of Inoue. This Inoue is not associated with the Inoue brothers, the more famous Inoue brothers over in Japan. I'll just say it right now. I've seen Inoue fight. I think Munguia is going to beat him and beat him easy. On the undercard of that fight, Munguia, Inoue fight, Jesus Rojas is going to defend his version of a featherweight title. Keith Thurman, one-time Thurman, or as Errol Spence like to call him, sometimes Thurman. He's finally making his return to the ring. Finally, folks. He's going to fight Jose Cito Lopez, so we will do a preview of those fights. So again, this has been episode 236 of Pound for Pound Boxing Report. I want to thank everybody who joined us in the live YouTube chat. I want to thank EJ Boxing Live for joining us live from the UK. Thank Daniel from the Inscriber, Gail from Communities Digital News. I'm your host, Michael. Again, episode 236 of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.